Hey guys, welcome to CSM Woodworking. Today we're going to be going over a project that we did. It was a 6 foot white oak coffee bar. We're just checking the depth. We're starting on the frame. You won't actually see this frame, so we just decided to make it out of pine. But halfway through, I was using 2x4s, and I quickly realized it was going to be too large of a frame, so we ended up doing 1x4s. But the concept's still the same. So right now we're setting up the pocket hole screws and getting out the Craig pocket hole clamp. It just helps you hold it in place better because I've noticed when I put the pocket hole screw in, it wants to walk out on me. So I use this, get one of them in. I have noticed if you do have it too tight in there, sometimes it will rip out on softer woods like pine. So just make sure if you're using the clamp, it's not too tight. It's just want it tight enough to hold the wood, but not tight enough to break through it. Sometimes these bigger projects seem to be overwhelming. Have to take a break and think about it, and then get back to work. And you just take it one step at a time, and eventually you'll get your project done. Try not to think too many steps ahead, but you still do have to think ahead so you don't make any mistakes that hinder the next step that you have to take. This side wanted to be more stubborn than the rest of them just because there was a little twist in the board. Just go ahead and take your time and try to flatten it out and as best you can. Clamps in this situation are your best friend. Try to clamp it before you do screw it and get the twist out of it. Get it as straight as possible. So we're still working with the 2x4s. We did the same thing with the 1x4 frame we made, but we're putting in some kind of corner braces just to prevent it from moving as you're opening and sliding the barn doors. I didn't want it to have any racking and end up coming apart later down the road. Here we're making our mortise and tenon joints. This is going to be part of our face frame. There's a lot of joining methods you can use. You probably won't see the mortise and tenon joints, but it's something that I noticed and I wanted to have a challenge in this project, so I decided to do it. If you choose not to use mortise and tenon, you can also just do pocket hole joints as well. Just as strong, I maybe recommend adding some glue on the face frame, but all in all, it works out to be the same. Here's your mortise and tenon joints finished up on the table saw. They're all laid out with the rails and stiles. And then I ended up laying it out too, just to mark out all the corresponding holes that I had to drill to actually make the face frame. Here it is all put together. We end up gluing it together, and that's your face frame is done. And then I would recommend building the rest of the cabinet. This is where our pocket holes are going to be lined up for our sides and our dado joints. I also recommend labeling them so you don't lose track of them during the rest of your project if you have to take a day off. We're putting in the pocket hole screws on the sides right now so we can attach it to the face frame later. Something we didn't get a video of is the rabbet joint we made on the back. So a 1/4 inch plywood can go in for the backing later on and it will sit flush and you won't really see it. But the cabinet's going to be sitting up against the wall, so it's not something we put too much detail on. Here's the dado joints we have marked out. There's a little jig we made up that actually cut dados with a router. I've just found it's a better fit for us and gets a little tighter than doing it on the table saw. So here we're going to start putting together the cabinet. We laid the face frame down, and that's our frame that we made out of the 1x4s. It's important here just to clamp everything before you start screwing everything together, because it just ensures that you can get the seams correct the way you want it to, instead of having to drill the holes and pull them back out and try to move things around. So it may take you a little longer, but in the long run, you'll be happier with the way it works after you dry fit everything, so that way it looks better. Since our face frame is hardwood, we're going to go ahead and pre-drill into the hardwood to just want to reduce the risk of splitting the face frame, since you put a lot of effort into building it. After we pre-drilled holes, we went ahead and screwed it back in, and that way it's attached on that side. On the sides, we're going to use some glue as well as pocket holes that we drilled earlier, and just attach it that way into the face frame. It's going to be a little unsturdy right now before it's all put together, but don't worry, as you build the cabinet, the strength will come later. If you notice on the top of the cabinet, we have some tabletop fasteners from Rockler. They're just used so that way we can avoid sending screws down through the top and give it a nice look when it does get finished. So during building this, we decided to add some screws into the top here. It wasn't initially planned, but I just wanted to keep it from flexing or something like that, or having the sides move out on us while you move the doors. Now we're going to start adding the sides to the face frame with the pocket holes. I did make a mistake while doing this. I noticed the screws weren't actually closing up the gap, so we actually had to take them back out and go ahead and clamp it down. Honestly, I should have done this before the first time, but you live and you learn. So it's a mistake that we ended up correcting, and your joints will be better off for it in the end. So I would recommend using clamps before you even pocket hole screw anything together. We're going to start putting in the bottom shelf, and it being kind of the floor of the cabinet. There's a dado cut in that as well for the center divider. We used pocket hole screws on the bottom of it to attach it to the face frame as well as the sides, kind of secure it from all directions. These are the shelves. You can see me drilling pocket holes on this as well. What you're seeing here is the bottom of the shelf, so you won't actually see the pocket holes, but we do want to make sure the top of the shelf sits flush with the face frame. So I'm just kind of tapping it in here. It's kind of hard to put the shelf in one side at a time, so you kind of have to work back and forth and ease it in. I didn't really want to break any of the dado joints or split the wood. I learned my lesson last time, and I'm going to go ahead and clamp it this time. Just make sure there's no gaps in there when we do put the pocket hole screws through to secure it to the face frame. With hardwood, you do want to make sure you're using fine thread screws just to go ahead and attach the face frame. That way you can avoid splitting in the hardwood. I believe here I was using 3/4 inch screws. Not really concerned about strength here. I just wanted to keep it attached. I don't think anybody's going to be pulling on the face frame too much, or just unclamping it and checking the fit that we have. I did make another mistake here. Ended up while I was flush trimming the face frame to the cabinet, ended up grabbing the grain and splitting probably halfway down the cabinet. So we ended up cutting a groove all the way down to add another piece of white oak. So in the hopes that when we did sand it down, you couldn't see it, and actually turned out pretty well. Next, we're gonna go ahead and start with the trim. We ended up making this trim on a router table. You'll see the profile on top later. I ended up making some trim that goes on the bottom of this as well, so that way we can put the nails up through the bottom. You don't have to actually put it through the part that you'll see. Sometimes I just don't like the way wood filler stains. We're just going to clamp it down again, like I said, before we actually secure it to the piece, and make sure the fit we have is acceptable, so we don't have any gaps in our miters, things like that. Right here, I'm just securing the trim with 18 gauge finish nails. I believe they were 1 inch finish nails. It's not really for strength. The glue, when it dries, is going to be what your strength is going to come from. But right now I want to be able to move the cabinet. Right here I'm sanding down this joint. It wasn't really the happiest with it, so sometimes adding some glue and sanding it will fill in the joint a little better than what you might have cut. Here you can actually see the profile of the trim that we just attached. I still have it clamped because the glue hasn't dried yet. We did also use the same router bit on the top just to kind of tie it all in together, as well as the same trim under the top to hide the gaps. Here's the doors we're going to be making. I made these out of 3/4 inch plywood. Ended up edge banding them, and the trim is just some more of the same stuff we made the rails and stiles out of to give it that barn door look. The hardware we actually found on Amazon is a 6 foot coffee bar. I think it came with the rollers and the track. It was pretty easy to mount up and go ahead and get the rollers put on there. The stain we used was an early American. We ended up finishing it with a high gloss polyurethane and got some lights there. You can get those on Amazon as well, just battery powered stick lights. If you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe. We'll be posting more throughout the journey, and we look forward to taking it on with you guys.